All right. Hello, and welcome to the Rock Metal Podcast. I'm your host, John Harris, and today on the Rock Metal Podcast, we have Catholic Guilt, not the condition, the band, and they have a new EP called This Is What Honesty Sounds Like, and it was released on August 28th, or will be released rather on August 28th via Wiretap Records. Right now I'm being joined by Brenton to share some more information about this stellar release and what the band's got going on. So, Brenton, welcome to the show.
Thank you, John. It's nice to talk to another Harris on a podcast. This doesn't happen often. It sounds like a family affair.
It could very well be a family affair. And to boot, are we both wearing the same AKG cans right now?
I do believe we are.
Wow. Well, that is fantastic. It's a I'm getting emotional. And it's not the guilt for once. This is what
Well, I mean... Yeah, the guilt is something that you have to learn to quieten down sometimes.
Exactly. Well, this is what honesty sounds like, and it's the Harris is meeting with the AKG headphones, and I would call it a life in 3-part harmony, but there's only 2 of us.
I mean, there's always the dull hum of the internet in the background. We could use that as the third part. Perhaps that's the low harmony.
Exactly.
Or Zuckerberg's omnipresence as well. He could be sitting there listening.
Yes, he could be. Or since this is Catholic Guilt, it could be the hum of the Lord.
I mean, always.
Always. Listening to every conversation I'm not even having. Groovy. True story, the other day, somebody said Facebook was dicking them around. Like, oh, I'm being dicked around again by Facebook. And so I just quipped, that's Mark Zuckerberg's dick, dicking you around. They were not.
Yeah, if he is listening, I'm sure he got a kick out of that.
I'm sure he did. I bet he has a great sense of humor. Fucking robot in a sweater. Anyway, so granted, that was like 20 years ago. Isn't it crazy how long that platform has been around? Like, I've been waiting for it to die any day now, and it just seems to keep going, like the Energizer Bunny.
Oh, it's astonishing. It has all the survival instincts that MySpace didn't. And it's unfortunate because I'll be honest, RIP MySpace, you're the real goat.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I still to this day do not use Facebook, even for the podcast. Like, I hate Facebook. I don't like it. And maybe I'm waiting for Facebook to die. It's funny from a generational perspective because it sounds like we're old enough to remember that Friendster was around for a bit and then it died. And then MySpace came around and it was around for a bit and it was amazing when it was. You could actually connect with other bands. You could connect with fans. You could network. You could do all the things that you have to have 6 social media accounts now to do that you could do on MySpace. And then it died. And when Facebook took over, it was like, really? This thing sucks. Like, this thing's going to die any day now. And it's still kicking around. And for people who've grown up with it for the last 10 years or 14 years, they're like, what do you mean it would go? Like, what's MySpace?
That's true. And look, I won't badmouth it too much in case they start hacking the algorithm against our posts, because it is a useful business tool. But alas, we'll digress.
I digress. Yeah, well, I heard that as a quote once. Either you spend money on Facebook or you make money on Facebook, and I'll just leave it at that. If anybody knows how to make money on Facebook, which it sounds like you do, so I need to connect with the other Harris family across the globe and go from there. Quite literally, you're in the future from where I'm at, so it makes sense.
Indeed we are. It is the future right now. I can tell you that existence continues for at least one more day.
At least one more day. Or all it means is that all we have is right now. I'm looking at the artwork for this EP. This is what honesty sounds like, and I'm intrigued, deliberately intrigued. Take us through this EP. What is this EP about? What does this artwork entail?
Sure. Well, the EP itself is supposed to encompass 5 different human experiences. Isolation, frustration. Oh wow! Look at me forgetting what all the experiences are at this time in the morning. Isolation, frustration, like grief, Oh wow. Do you ever do any editing? Because
we can edit it if you want, but it also shows you're human or something. So isolation, frustration, grief. So what I'll do to save this, well, obviously we could edit it if you want to. I can put in the request to my editing guy. But I think more realistically, is this about just the state of human emotions as people were going through the pandemic?
Not specifically the pandemic, but in general, that malaise that everyone hits in their early 30s, where you are being encountered by or confronted by a lot of the more difficult experiences that humans go through for the first time, quite frequently all at once. And the record essentially documents me growing up as a human being through a number of ordeals, as it would be. And so it's kind of I wouldn't call it a spiritual cleansing, but that is essentially what's going on. You're connecting with my inner psyche in a very real way.
Okay, you're getting increasingly uncomfortable as you're talking about it because you're starting to like massage yourself and hug yourself and.
Yeah, maybe I didn't do as good a job at processing as I thought.
It's deep down in there, baby. I can't tell you how many books I've read from Brene Brown, for example, on shame and guilt and all these things, and how many meditation sessions I've had. And eventually you kind of just wonder, is this just me? Did I just end up in some weird universal game where I was set up to be this way and there's nothing I can do about it? I mean, how have you come along on your processing?
So for me, honestly, I'm in a lot better space now, having gone through writing 2 EPs worth of material that's gone through the depths of my my brain and my processing. But it did take a while to get comfortable enough to be able to talk about a lot of these things with people. I've always been quite open as emotionally, but in terms of being a lyricist in bands or being a vocalist in bands, there's always been a barrier, which I always assumed was caused by the fact that I had to worry about other people's input on what I was writing and what I was putting forward to any project. And the whole purpose of starting the band the way that I did and writing the songs the way that I did was to make sure that filter was gone, and that this was going to be the most authentic representation of the experience I'd had. And I found that it helped me more than anything else ever has in becoming comfortable with myself, truly comfortable with myself in most settings.
Mm-hmm. Now, going back to social media and about kind of what we're chatting about here, something I read on Twitter the other day that you guys had posted was you guys were playing a show, it looks like, on July 5th. And
yep,
somebody, just reading the message, somebody disliked the song The Awful Truth. So I'm guessing you run up against this. So I don't know, I guess you're just a brave young man. I mean, maybe take us through that event. What happened?
Okay, so this I became aware of this after the show, so because somebody informed me that it had happened, and usually in these situations, people will come up to you and confront you or heckle you or say something to you, but obviously that wasn't going to be possible in this particular scenario because we're playing a show to 150 people with an awful lot of movement going on. It was the third song in the set. We were very loud, I must say. So I don't think if they did object in the moment that I would have known anyway. But I found out that the song had somewhat been misinterpreted by a particularly religious young attendee.
This happens? You're kidding.
Yeah, I know, right? Who'd have thought? But they seem to have interpreted it as an attack on them, which it actually isn't. Like, and that's something I want to talk about. Like, the Awful Truth as a song is my lashing out against, and the band's lashing out as an entity against the systemic cover-up of pedophilia by the Roman Catholic Church, the institution, the Vatican. It's not actually a targeted shot at anyone who may subscribe to that belief system or who may consider themselves a member of or consider themselves a Catholic as such. It is possible to be a decent human being and also be a Catholic. But as far as I'm concerned, if your following of that religion is so entrenched that you're not willing to accept that there was very clearly a systemic cover-up of heinous abuse for thousands of years as an institution, then you're just as guilty as they are.
I like how you just dropped the bomb, and then it was quiet. I was debating about how long to leave that silence for, and then I got uncomfortable, Brenton. Actually, true story, when I was, for a short period of time, or a long period of time, I don't want to get into it, I was living in Arizona, and there was I don't know what you call these places that the Catholic Church keeps, but they were cycling pedophilic priests, and it was discovered that they were keeping them in Scottsdale, Arizona. And then and then sending them back out into the world.
That is just horrific, an example of what the song is about. And, you know, as I was saying, that's I'm not entirely anti-religion, right? I'm not out here, and we're not out here as a band, or at least I'm not. I probably shouldn't say that the other guys aren't. I shouldn't speak for them necessarily. Saying that you're wrong for having religious belief. I'm saying you're wrong for supporting shitty behavior. Shitty behavior is shitty behavior, and crimes are crimes, and there's no devout layer of protection there just because you happen to be a man of the cloth. And it is an enduring frustration of mine that these things occur, and it is nice to see progress, I must say, in the prosecution of people in these situations, but it's very much a case of there being a lot of work to do, and what has been done so far is too little, probably too late.
Yeah. Well, and now, since we're on the topic, over 300 or 400 children now have been discovered in mass graves here because of the way the Catholics had treated the Indigenous population here in Canada. And so now the Indigenous leaders are looking to the Pope for an apology. I'm like, well, good luck if you get him to come to Canada and apologize. So it's definitely sparked some things as of recent here in Canada for sure. With regard to the what's the word I want to look for? The Strong Arm Hold organization that faith, we'll call it, has become.
Yep.
And has been for thousands of years, a couple thousand years. Or actually at this point, maybe to 1,500?
Yeah, 1,500. That's an interesting development, and a very sad one, and it's something that had made the news over here quite a bit. And the thing that's actually interesting to touch on there is that one of the reactions to that in Australia, anyway, was actually a fair amount of ignorance to the almost the existence in general of the Indigenous population of Canada to start with, which is also something that people typically discuss regarding Australia. I feel like there are elements of this that are quite prevalent in all Commonwealth nations, shall we say, where the Indigenous populations have been so deliberately almost... No, they have been. There was a genocide, essentially, to eradicate that culture from the country, and the fact that it persists at all is quite a monumental achievement by the culture to keep itself alive. And it's while it's a horrible thing to have been unearthed about the Catholic Church, I suppose the one small positive there is that it got people in Canada talking about your Indigenous population. and provided an opportunity for education of people who may not have even been aware that Canada had one.
Yeah. Yeah. And now our new Governor General is Indigenous. So we're making progress. I think, I hope.
Yeah, it seems like you are. And I think down here we're finally making progress as well. Not that it's the biggest thing in the world, and it might be seen as being particularly ceremonial, but they did name a Indigenous man, Paddy Mills, as the flag bearer for Australia at the Olympics this morning, which is quite wonderful to see, because he, as one of the athletes that genuinely does do his bit to try and boost the perception and the understanding of the Indigenous culture in Australia on a worldwide scale. So it's nice to see those efforts respected and finally being presented as modern Australia.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Exactly. Okay, so far, Brenton, today we've chatted about MySpace and how great it was. We've chatted about early 30s malaise. So at this point, we should just call ourselves the 30-year-old podcast.
Yeah.
We just finished touching up on Indigenous rights, and what else did we chat about? Chatted about Catholic guilt, both the condition and the band. We chatted a little bit about the EP of This Is What Honesty Sounds Like, and we've got enough time to chat about these 3 singles as of right now, anyway, these 3 singles. I know you said there was really only 2 that you're kind of pushing right now, but I came across 3. You said one was a little bit happier, a little bit bouncier maybe. We've got Nothing, and then an ellipses. Nothing, ... for those of you who are grammatically insufficient. Life in 3-part harmony and a boutique affair. So take us through these tracks. How much is left of the EP, actually?
So technically it is all out now. In terms of as singles, it is all out. It could also be the thing that happened here was we, like everyone else, had best laid plans of releasing this last year, full scale, rolling it out, touring, etc. And then a thing called a pandemic happened and changed our plans about 92 times. So we did end up releasing all 5 songs progressively as singles, as seems to be the way of the world. And it worked out for us because we actually ended up getting all 5 played on our national youth radio network out here, Triple J. Which makes us one of the very rare bands to have literally every song from a release played on national radio, which is a nice claim to fame. But in terms of the songs themselves, the 3 that you mentioned, those are the 3 predominant singles. Nothing is a song about processing grief and about coming to terms with this notion that grief isn't something that happens, you get over, and you continue on living your life. It's something that continually comes to the fore as you're just moving around living your life. So you kind of become haunted by your memories and your presence of a person. And so it's specifically written about that experience of being at someone's house that you used to go to all the time and instinctively turning to talk to them, but they're not there and they're never going to be there again. And learning how to perform a spiritual alchemist's trick in a way that has you turn that presence into a positive memory and into this notion that you've known love. Because to grieve is to have known love, and to have known love is to have lived. And that's essentially what that song is about.
You're so deep, Brenton. I bet you use that line to pick up girls. That would work nonstop.
Well, I actually don't, but that's because I tripped over and literally fell on my partner of 14 years at a emo night 14 years ago. So.
Okay.
So it might work.
Yeah, so it totally would work. Anybody listening in right now on like Spotify or whatever, watching on YouTube.
This is on YouTube? Oh, no.
Yeah, watching on YouTube. You can totally... Sorry?
I probably look quite average, but anyway, that's all right.
Average. Okay. Fantastic. That went another direction. Going back to the pickup line, being like, baby, if I don't get your number, I'm going to grieve. But you know what? To grieve means that I loved this moment. And that means that I lived in this moment with you. But you know what? And just leave it as a stare, I guess. I don't know. See? You're even laughing.
Yeah, I am laughing at that. That's great. The inner workings of my despair presented as a pickup line. I love it. That's growth. That's growth.
The inner workings of my despair. Holy jeebers, Brenton.
So let's talk about a happier song.
The inner workings of my lack of despair.
Yeah. So Life in Three-Part Harmony, which is one of the other songs that has a lovely animated video. That song is about my love of live music and my love of other people who love the experience of attending shows and the unique way in which music empowers each and every one of us on a communicative level and a spiritual level. So it was inspired by watching my partner watch a band and noticing the way that her whole body was responding to the music. Like every vocal inflection would bring a smile or a full body response that you could see that she's having a near spiritual experience. And you look around the room and everyone else there is in that mindset then as well. Mm-hmm. And that's always been something that I've found to be almost the equivalent of a church for me. That experience at shows. And so the rest of the band feel the same way. So we wrote a song essentially dedicated to the thing that we connect with the strongest and that we use as our method of communication with other human beings. I'm sure everyone's been to a show before and had that moment where you're singing along to each word of the song and it feels like it's really connecting with you and you're like, I'm experiencing something really special here. I'm bonded. And you look to the left or to the right of you and there's people from all different walks of life having that exact same experience as you in that moment. And I don't think there's anything else on the planet that does that as well as music.
Unless the band sucks, Brenton, and then that never happens.
That's true, but maybe they can go see some non-sucky bands and have it happen.
Exactly. Yeah. And for anybody listening in who's in a band, that's what you're looking for, that visceral response. You don't want people to go, yeah, your band is cool. No. You want people to be like, here's my credit card. Where is your album? I want to buy it now. I was singing along to all the words of your song. You want a visceral reaction, or as Brenton put it, a spiritual reaction, where people are just digging it because you don't suck.
Exactly. And we were fortunate enough to have that experience the other night. We actually finally got to play a show, play an EP launch show in Melbourne here, and seeing other people singing the words of that song, all of our songs really, but that song, for example, and the way that I actually saw that happening in real time, because I'm the vocalist and I can see what's going on everywhere. I saw happening in real time people having a connection to the back half of the lyrics where I'm like, and I can't imagine anywhere in the world I'd rather be than in a front row of a sold-out show in your company. Because the show was, in fact, sold out. And they were, in fact, in the front row. And they were singing along with their friends. And they were having that same moment that I see myself having at shows. And to see that come full circle really was quite empowering for me, like quite an overwhelming experience for me. Not to make it all about myself, but whenever you've written a song and somebody connects with it in that way, and then comes up to you and tells you that they've connected with it in that way, then that's all I ever really wanted to achieve in playing music, was being able to help somebody else by writing a song in the way that music has helped me and other musicians have helped me. So seeing that happen ever, and it has happened a few times now, thankfully, I'm very lucky, gives you a great sense of fulfillment and connection with the people attending your show. So it's rad.
It is.
Now, yeah, go on. Sorry.
I was going to say, you can also, say front row and sold out, because with COVID restrictions, there was only one row, and it was the front row, and it was pretty easy to sell it out because it was not full capacity. But, you don't have to include that information.
No, look, sold out is sold out.
Sold out is sold out.
Yeah, look, it was 150, which is not bad considering the current.
Yeah, that's pretty good for COVID. Actually, I just got finished chatting with somebody in Newcastle, and they said that Australia is starting to shut down again. So,
yeah, so we got lucky in the sense that that we got lucky that we got our show in before that inevitably occurs. We actually live in the city of Melbourne, which has been the one that has experienced the most lockdowns and stuff, and we've all been fully supportive of those lockdowns. It's petty to not be, really, in this sense that, at least in terms of its impact on us as a band, our music or our musical career is in no way as important as the health and well-being of the entire population of the state of Victoria, for example. So we were surprisingly compliant for a bunch of punk rock dudes during the lockdown, but we do appreciate that it's been quite difficult for a lot of people. And that obviously includes us, because it's had a dramatic impact on our personal lives, our social lives, our ability to get this release happening. And it stopped us being able to go to the United States when we were supposed to. But that it's all about maintaining perspective and realizing that it's not something that's happening to you or because of you. It's something that's happening around you that is impacting you. And so, like most bands, we've had to find ways to work around that. So that meant not seeing each other for 5 months, for example. But being able to maintain connection via all of these wonderful opportunities and options we have these days with the internet, and making sure to make that effort and to make contact with the people that that were struggling, or just in general, just making sure you're there. We were able to get through it to the point where we've come out on the other side ready to do a lot of really cool things. And I'm happy to say that most other bands that I know have also managed to get to that point, and most other people I know have managed to get to that point. And that's a combination of a community spirit. Even though everyone was so disconnected, they really did come together here and work for a overall goal, which was to be able to get our city, which is one of culture. It's a very cultural city. It's very music heavy. It's very art heavy. It's very theater heavy. It's very comedy heavy. It's an event going populace. Everyone working together to get back to that part has been really actually quite surprising and empowering to see. I've actually think that our city became better, even though it's suffered a lot. I think it became better.
That's good. I haven't heard that one, and I don't know that I could say that about my city, but that's good.
Yeah. Now,
I think
there's actually a good. I'm sorry to hear that. It's actually I think it's actually surprising, right? Because the generation that's been the best at this, and this is a continuous bugbear of mine, right? Our generation, yours and my generation, and the two generations below us had no problem doing the right thing, at least not here, right?
Yep.
Very community-minded, very focused on enjoyment of life, of fulfillment of life, and a lot of the goals seem to be more tailored towards creating the best possible experience for everyone, or the most inclusive experience for everyone. And despite it being the most restrictive on what is really the most active years of our lives, so actually probably the most, apart from the elderly who obviously died in enormous numbers, and young people were probably adversely impacted the most in terms of its restriction on what they could do with what are supposed to be the golden years of their life. Yet they were the ones that tended to come together the quickest and complied the quickest and did the things that they were supposed to do. And yet I continuously heard in the media people targeting young people as the problem, which just did not seem to be the case. And I used to work at a university, and every single day I would see people who had their light switched on in their eyes still, who still believed that change was possible, who still thought that, there was a world bigger than just themselves. And those people inspired me, and they've inspired me again throughout the pandemic, because they've been the ones that have been out there doing everything that has been asked of them, and doing so willingly and with a genuine desire to make the world better. And that actually fills me as a 30-odd-year-old with great hope for the next generation's role in at least my country.
Wow. Okay. All right. I'll have to go to the library and see if I can get a copy of the book that you've got, because I don't even think I'm on the same page. Anyway, great.
Interesting. But no, that's the thing. It depends on what you're exposed to. It really does. And I can see how that might not be the case everywhere, certainly. But for whatever reason, I've landed in a very positive place regarding the younger generation, and also a pretty positive place regarding my state and community's response to the pandemic. But
that's pretty good, because the joke I heard the entire time was that, just like the Spice Girls, everybody can get their shit together but Victoria. So.
Now, unfair joke. All right, but I won't go into it. Other than to say, we weren't where the virus started, damn it.
That's right. Well, it's not about where it started, Brenton. It's about, shared.
It didn't even spread from here.
Shared responsibility, Brenton, and evidently.
No, it's very funny. The one thing I will say, and this is the inner Victorian coming out in me. It's funny how Australia is a country, a commonwealth, if you like, a federal government.
Yes.
Until there's something where it requires a federal government to take responsibility of the health and well-being of its populace. And then all of a sudden you'll find that, no, those are state government responsibilities. And so I would say that our state government tried very hard to do the right thing. I'm not necessarily pro nor anti government in general, but that the federal government on Australia failed on a fucking catastrophic level. And the one thing they did
what happened
correct,
to being positive, Brenton?
Yeah, the one thing they did correct was the welfare system. That was quite well utilized.
Yeah.
But I consider that a bare pass mark for a country that has a system that's already well established for assisting people who fall in hard times. So that's my one negative gripe, is that they definitely should have handled the vaccines better, and they definitely could have handled supporting us better. Okay. But having said that, it was still better than what I saw happen in a lot of other places. So I am speaking from a position of relative privilege. I understand. Of course. One thing about A Boutique Affair, which is the one song we haven't talked about out of the three, that song is about how it is harder and harder and harder to make friends the older you get.
I wonder why, Brenton.
And I'm a genuinely quite positive guy.
I agree with you.
But it is more difficult to make friends the older that you get, and that seems to be a universal experience that people were having around me. And so we wrote that song, and it's got that cool trick where it sounds super happy and upbeat and pop punk, but if you listen to the lyrics, they're actually really depressing.
That's how you do it.
Yeah. And so I've coined a phrase for that. Sad Boy Dance Party is what I decided that song should be called.
I don't ever want to be at a sad boy dance party. Maybe if I wear my mesh shirt and get my electrical tape on my nipples, I'll be happy to show up at a sad boy dance party, and I'll bring my distortion pedal, and we'll do some industrial pop punk or something.
Yeah, exactly. You should.
Steampunk.
The comedian Andrew O'Neill is out there very happy right now that I'm mentioning steampunk. So A Boutique Affairs, like, obviously is the one that's had the most radio play of those songs. It took off quite well on Triple J, and then their subsidiary station, Triple J Unearthed, which is a digital radio station out here, and it's been getting spun quite a lot. And it turns out that a lot of people connect with that lyrical message. And it seems like I'm not the only person who, much like Soupy, just wants to sell out his funeral.
That's right, baby. I hope they don't forget at my funeral to talk about how humble I am. Cool.
I've spoken a lot about me and my role in the band here, and I just want to make sure that anyone that's watching or listening doesn't think this is a one-man project or anything. It absolutely isn't. My bandmates are awesome people, fantastic musicians. None of these songs are what they are without their contributions, and I'm most certainly not the vocalist that I am, nor the lyricist that I am without their input, and the band definitely wouldn't function without each of them to the way that it does. We did start this as a 2-piece. It did expand to a 5-piece, and every single person that is currently in the band brings an element that I would consider to be essentially irreplaceable, because they've got a unique skill set that, when combined, creates these very fully fledged productions and songs. So to John,
yes, Brenton,
I have to say that I got to give a big shout out to my man, to James, our drummer, to Dean, our guitarist, to Bryce, our guitarist and vocalist, and of course to our most handsome of men, Ben, our bass player, for the role that they play in the band Catholic Guilt, because it is very much a collective, and the songs belong to them as much as they belong to me. So it's nice to see, and nice to be able to say wholeheartedly that this is by far the best band I've ever been in terms of the makeup of the people and the level of skill and the songs that we've written. And so I'm happy that this is the stuff that people in Canada get to hear.
Abso-freaking-lutely, buddy. And I love the name Bryce, because it doesn't sound as attractive when I say it, but when you have an Australian accent, it's like Bryce.
Yeah, mate. He's Bryce.
Bryce, mate.
Or as my autocorrect always says on my speech to text, Bruce.
Exactly. Which doesn't sound as good in an Australian accent. Bruce.
Bryce. Hey, Bruce. Bryce.
Listen, Bryce. Yeah, fucking gotta get that going, right? Anyway, so...
Yeah. Oh, mate, our accent is cooked. I know.
Aircon. Bryce, put the aircon on. Okay. Beautiful. Yeah. Oh, no, it's a bogan, Bryce. Look out. So, cool. Well, that concludes my questions, and my next call is knocking on the door.
Cool.
So we chatted about anything and everything under the sun. I'm glad to finally have you guys on the show, because like I said, I think you guys released an EP, last year, and I was trying to get you on, and I was sad, but now I'm happy, and we'll do this again. And, yeah. So thank you so much for coming on to the Pop Punk Rock Metal podcast today.
No worries. Thanks for having me, John. To people that are watching, which I wasn't aware was going to happen, or listening, can you, and you want to hear what This Is What Honesty Sounds Like is about, or you just want to hear more of my ridiculous accent, go to catholicguiltmusic.com/listen, and you'll be able to access the whole EP and all of our socials from there. Also, shout out to Rob from Wiretap Records. What a legend.